Aris sifted through endless streams of data, raw images from the furthest reaches, each pixel a potential story. Most were familiar tales, dying stars, distant galaxies, the known, the categorized, yet the cosmos always held surprises. It was the unknown that truly called to him. One Tuesday evening, late in October, the air outside was crisp autumnal. Inside, the screens glowed. Aris noticed something, a flicker, a slight irregularity in a fresh batch of images. From the Serpens Nebula, the universe, it seemed, had a new secret to share. Days turned into weeks. The anomaly persisted not in one image, but in several, taken at different intervals, from the same patch of sky. This was no mere glitch, no transient artifact. It was a signal, faint, yes, but undeniably present. Aris dedicated his evenings to it, the regular research pushed aside. This felt more urgent, more compelling, a siren song from the void. He began to isolate the signal, a painstaking process, filtering out the background radiation, the hiss of the universe, the light from countless stars. It was like trying to hear a whisper in the midst of a cosmic orchestra. Each layer of noise removed, revealed something clearer beneath, something structured, something that did not belong. Not in the natural symphony of space. It was a foreign note. The structure became more apparent. It was not random. It pulsed with a strange mathematical regularity. Aris felt a shiver, not of cold, but of profound realization. This was not a natural emission. No known celestial body behaved this way. No physical process could explain it. The implications were staggering. He was looking at something else, and perhaps something intelligent. The signal was undeniably a code. Complex, intricate, its patterns were too deliberate for chance. Aris assembled a small, trusted team, sworn to secrecy. The implications were too vast, too potentially disruptive. They worked tirelessly, in the secluded confines of the observatory, trying to crack the celestial cipher. Days blurred into a cycle of coffee, calculations, and quiet desperation. The code resisted all conventional decryption methods. It was not language as we know it, no alphabet, no grammar, just sequences, numbers, ratios. They tried linguistic analysis, cryptographic algorithms. Nothing yielded. The frustration mounted. Were they missing something obvious, or was this simply beyond human comprehension? The universe had sent a puzzle, and it was proving fiendishly difficult. Aris felt the weight of it, the tantalizing proximity to understanding, just out of reach. Then, a breakthrough. Dr. Lena Hansen, a brilliant mathematician on his team. She noticed a correlation, not with language, but with time, and with specific astronomical events. The code seemed to predict them. The universe was not just speaking, it was foretelling. The team focused on a specific sequence. It was short, seemingly innocuous. The decoded elements pointed to a date and a location, just 3 days hence. A minor geological event, a small tremor, in a sparsely populated region of the Andes, magnitude 3.7. The details were unnervingly precise, too precise for a guess. Aris felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. This was the first true test. They waited. The 3 days passed with agonizing slowness. Aris found himself constantly checking the news feeds. His colleagues were equally tense. If the prediction failed, then perhaps the code was just a complex coincidence, a misinterpretation. But if it came true, the thought was almost too much to bear. The responsibility, the knowledge. What would it mean for humanity to know the future on the predicted day, at the predicted time? News alerts began to flash. A minor earthquake reported in the Atacama Desert region near the Chilean Andes. Initial magnitude estimates hovered around 3.7. It had happened. Section 5. A pattern of disaster. The next prediction was far more alarming. A catastrophic tropical cyclone was forming in the Atlantic, set to hit Florida. The date was less than 2 weeks away. Predicted wind speeds and storm surge were chillingly precise. This was no minor tremor. Significant loss of life and widespread devastation were expected. Aris felt a moral imperative to act. He wrestled with the dilemma, how to warn people. Who would believe a warning based on an alien code deciphered by a small group of astrophysicists? He would be dismissed as a madman. Panic could be as damaging as the storm itself. He chose to send an anonymous warning to a few key meteorological agencies and select disaster relief organizations. Vague enough to avoid immediate dismissal, but specific enough if they chose to look closer. The days ticked by. Weather satellites began to detect the formation of a tropical depression exactly where the code had indicated. It rapidly intensified, defying initial forecasts, growing into a monstrous hurricane just as the prediction had described. Aris watched the news reports with a sickening sense of helplessness. He had tried to warn them, but the warning was too cryptic, too unbelievable, from too unknown a source. The hurricane, named Orion by meteorologists, struck with the ferocity the code had detailed. The devastation was immense, the loss of life, tragic. The accuracy of the cosmic prediction was undeniable, horrifyingly so. A pattern was emerging, a pattern of disaster, foretold by an unseen intelligence from the depths of space. Aris felt the weight of this knowledge crushing him. This was no longer a scientific curiosity, it was a terrifying reality. Section 6. The Weight of Foreknowledge. Sleep offered Aris no escape. His nights were plagued by visions of cosmic ciphers and impending doom. The weight of what he knew was a crushing burden. He was privy to the universe's darkest secrets, its schedule of catastrophes. How could one man bear such a thing? He felt utterly alone, despite his small team. They too were struggling. Under the strain of this terrible foreknowledge, the ethical questions tormented him. Did they have the right to know? Did they have the right to interfere? If they warned the world, and the world believed them, could it lead to mass panic, economic collapse? Or could it save lives? The responsibility was immense. Each potential action rippled outwards with unforeseen consequences. Silence felt like complicity, but speaking out felt like playing God, with a script written by an alien hand. He found himself staring up at the night sky, not with wonder anymore, but with a sense of trepidation. Those silent, glittering stars. Were they a source of enlightenment, or sentinels of an unchangeable fate? The beauty of the cosmos now seemed tainted by the chilling predictions it harbored, the vastness of space which once inspired awe. Section 7. Confronting the Unthinkable. The decoding continued. Relentlessly, each solved sequence was like turning a page in a book of future sorrows. Then they found it. A prediction so catastrophic it dwarfed all previous ones. It spoke of a global event, a coordinated series of supervolcanic eruptions triggered by a deep space anomaly. The date was precise, less than a year away. The consequences unimaginable, an extinction-level event. The team stared at the data in horrified silence. This was not a regional disaster. This was the end of civilization, as they knew it. The scale was unthinkable. The implications, terminal. How could they even begin to process this? The earlier predictions had been terrible enough. But this was a death sentence for humanity, handed down from the stars. Aris felt a cold despair settle deep within his bones. What could they do? Warn the world of its impending annihilation? Who would believe such an outlandish claim? And even if they did, what preparations could possibly be made against such an overwhelming force of nature, unleashed on a global scale? The futility of it all was overwhelming. It felt like watching a distant asteroid, on a collision course with Earth, knowing there was nothing, absolutely nothing, they could do to stop it. The isolation of this knowledge. Section 8. The Burden of Truth. Aris could no longer bear the burden alone. The secret was too vast, too terrible. He decided to approach an old friend, Professor Alistair Finch, a renowned physicist, a man of impeccable reputation, and, crucially, a man with connections to the highest levels of government and international scientific bodies. It was a desperate gamble, but silence was no longer an option. The fate of the world hung in the balance, or so it seemed. Professor Finch listened patiently. As Aris laid out the evidence, the initial discovery, the coded signals, the chillingly accurate predictions, the final, unthinkable prophecy. Finch was, understandably, skeptical. It sounded like science fiction, not sober reality. Yet Aris's distress was palpable. The data, meticulously presented, was compelling. Finch promised to review everything with an open but critical mind. He understood the gravity. Days later, Finch returned. His face was grim. He and his own trusted analysts had verified Aris's findings. The mathematics were sound, the correlations undeniable, the code was real, and its predictions terrifyingly accurate. The initial shock gave way to a dawning realization of the monumental crisis they faced, the burden of truth. Section 9 echoes in the dark. The final year began, marked by the chilling celestial forecast. Humanity, or at least a select few, now knew of its potential doom. Efforts were underway, secretive, desperate, to mitigate the predicted cataclysm, to find some flaw in the prophecy, some way to alter the outcome. But the code had been unerringly accurate so far. Was this a future that could be rewritten, or merely observed in helpless terror? The question of the source lingered. Who or what had sent these messages, and why? Was it a warning, a taunt, or simply an observation? From an intelligence so advanced, it saw time itself as a landscape, spread out before it. The silence from the stars offered no answers, only the persistent, chilling predictions, echoing in the digital streams. From the Serpens Nebula, a distant, silent harbinger. As the predicted date approached, a strange calm settled over Aris. He had done all he could. The burden was shared. The world, whether it knew it or not, was bracing. He often looked up at the night sky, no longer with fear, but with a profound sense of insignificance. Humanity, for all its achievements,